welcome back to the Divine Love Podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by Matt Brown, and we talk about the 3 P's: presence, patience, and peace. I hope you enjoy. Alright. Hello there, Matt.
Hi Ethan.
How are you?
Good. Good
Lovely.
to be here.
I'm very excited to have you on. This is the first one I've done face-to-face with someone that isn't just my camera. So this is interesting. This will be a new learning experience for me, I think is the best way to put it.
Great. Well, I'm happy to be involved.
Yeah, so I've not known you too long, really. You've known my dad and my family a long time, but we've only met really within the last 2-3 months at most.
Yeah.
In that short space of time, I've got to know you fairly well. I don't know a whole lot about how you got to where you are, but I know where you are somewhat well, and I know the kind of stuff you're involved in and where your interests are. And I notice quite a lot that I see a lot of myself in you, in the sense of like you're very patient and you're very present and you live for the moment more than anything, and you don't concern yourself with too much what's to come and what's happened. You acknowledge them and you learn from them as you should. My first question I want to ask you really is, what was life like for you growing up? Because I understand I understand where you are rather, but I'm intrigued to see how you got to where you are, because my story is very different from yours and likewise. So I'm interested.
Yeah, absolutely. So I could probably talk about that for hours, so I'll give you the short version.
Okay.
But I would say I had a really good childhood, loving parents. My dad worked a lot throughout my younger years, so most of the time that my brother and I spent was with my mum, probably in her care. But yeah, I would say, we had a good childhood. My brother and I were very close in age, so there's...
How old's your brother?
He's 36 now, so...
And are you the older or younger? I can't remember.
I'm 35.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's just a year and 22 days actually between us, which means that we were really partners in crime growing up, and always getting up to mischief and kind of going. Thankfully, we lived in the countryside most of the time, so we were going out and about and kind of building tree huts and fires and killing small animals and things like this. All the things that young boys get up to. So I would say I had a really good, varied childhood, but it also had its elements of some of the darker things as well. So
yeah, I think as all people do. I think everyone's got their points, definitely.
Yeah, as 2 curious young guys, my brother and I dabbled in lots of things, and discovered smoking and alcohol and drugs and things like this, albeit fairly harmless things. But there was also a bit of fighting in there as well, and I think that really came about from us both being very competitive, probably for our parents' love.
Yeah,
really.
I can definitely relate to that, having 2 brothers that we grew up together. I've got 4 in total, but 2 of them I don't see too often. One of them is older now, has kids, and I have a great relationship with him now, and I've not spoken to him in a while. But with my 2 brothers, Harris and Kaelin, because we were in that same environment, and my parents, the split of my parents, there was always this kind of like tension to an extent. And as I've grown older, I understand that the tension was not because of each other; it was because of the circumstances that we grew up in, and just the way it played out. And we didn't all realize.
And that's the beauty of having conscious conversations with your siblings and your loved ones, is that you then get to form much deeper relationships, as you've discovered, and that's also been my experience as well. I was just on a call with my brother arranging something to do today, so we now have a friendship, a really strong friendship, as well as a brotherly relationship. And but back then we had our challenges, and we did fight a lot with each other. But interestingly, if there was ever somebody else involved, we would always be on the same side, against them. So So yeah, I would say I had a really good childhood. I had a very good education. When I was 12 years old, I ended up going to a boarding school, all boys boarding school, in Edinburgh, and that was, for me, it was wonderful because it kind of felt like I was just going to summer camp all year round.
Yeah.
I really kind of adapted well to that sort of environment. Rugby was a big sport of mine, so played a lot of rugby, and that also allowed me to use my aggression, let's say, more resourcefully.
Yeah.
Out on the rugby pitch, and then I had a really varied school career as well. Got involved in lots of different sports and activities, from drama to shooting, CCF, pipe band, and then ended up being the captain of school as well, which is like
A head boy.
Yeah. And I really, really thrived, I would say, in the environment that school created for me. And then after that, went to university for 3 years. Spent most of my time probably partying as opposed to studying.
Yeah. What was it you were studying?
I was studying initially advertising and marketing, and then that transferred into more of like a media communications degree. So I became really interested in how the media in all different forms communicates messages to the public in order to control, influence, persuade. So it was very much associated with my fascination in why people do what they do, and how we can say certain things in order to move people in particular directions, and how depending on what we expose ourselves to in terms of people, information, ideas, will depend on ultimately the quality of life that we can then have for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's what kind of brought me to where I am today, which is as a coach, somebody that really loves supporting other people in them being able to access a higher quality of life for themselves.
Yeah, I think I have the very much the same approach, but you do it on a one-to-one basis. And in a sense, I did do that on a day-to-day kind of basis, but with this podcast itself, that's really my intention. My intention is to give people a change of perspective to allow them to help themselves. Because, I mean, I'll do my healing, I'm not helping them, I'm just helping them help themselves. It's the same thing with this. And using my voice, I think, is the real gift I've been given. And the ability to word things and set things out in a certain way that's not overly complicated, but it's got enough detail where it keeps you interested, and you're like, oh, that's... And then you throw in a big word now and then, it just catches people's attention, stuff like that. Just the way my experiences have brought me to this point where I'm able to form conversations in such a way that has benefit to people. And that's an absolute gift. I could not be more grateful for that. I'm still learning, don't get me wrong. I have a long way to go, and I'm looking forward to the journey. I'm enjoying it as it is. But yeah, it's the same thing but a different aspect, and I think that's why I said at the start, I see myself in you a lot, because I see what you do now, and I'm going, oh, there's a lot I can learn here, and there's a lot I can take from this, and it is really been a joy having to spend time with you and getting to know you and pick your brain, because that is what I've been doing. Yeah,
well, it's been a pleasure, Ethan, and you're so receptive and open to
I appreciate that.
Having these conversations and everything. So I love to share some of the wisdom that I've acquired over the years through my experiences, and also some of the wisdom that kind of flows in as well that we can't really take any responsibility for. And we've had these conversations where things just flow in the moment.
Yeah.
And that it hasn't come from you. It's just there, and it's there to be said. And that is something that actually fascinates me much more than what I was just referring to.
Yeah.
Because what I was referring to is more mental, and there's a science and an art to that, which is what I really appreciate. And it's something that can be replicated because it's almost like a strategy of communication.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I want this person to buy my product, so I'm going to say A plus B, and then I'm going to get C as a result. You know, and I know that if I repeat that strategy and that algorithm or that sum, that's what I'm going to get. And that's all very well and good, and it will take us so far. From my own personal experience, is what I've found is that it takes us so far. But what is far more interesting to me now is to not plan and prepare my communication,
Mm-hmm.
but to allow life to be communicated through me.
Yeah, I think that I'm very much stepping into the same sort of space at the moment as well. And we had a great conversation a couple of months ago about just that. And it comes down to presence. I think that is really the one and only words you can put towards that. And your ability, it's not, we had a conversation, I'm going, oh, I am present, but then me going into that state of going, am I present, am I not present, takes you out of the presence. And you're not just experiencing it, it's just about letting it flow. And since that conversation, I've really, really noticed a change in the way in which I've been just living. Because I've not been concerned or worried, and I've just been going, nice, what has today got in store for me? Let's see. And just enjoying it. And it has been truly amazing. And since then, a lot of things have happened. You know, I was standing at work a couple of weeks ago, just packing parts away. And all of a sudden, I found out I got a new job. I'm like, oh, nice, life has some real insights for me, some real stuff in store for me. And I've always known that. I think faith is a big part of that for me. And just faith in, I know that if my intentions are right and I put my heart into it and my love into it, then it will come into fruition no matter what. There's nothing that can stop that. If I believe, there's nothing that can change that. But to allow that to happen and to allow to see those opportunities, you have to be present. I think a couple of words from you on that would be good, because you've really spent a long time on this, a lot longer than I have at least, kind of diving into this area and this idea of presence.
Yeah, so I mean, I would have to say that if there was one thing that has made the biggest difference in my life, it's been my ability to be present to the moment that is
Mm-hmm.
here now. And that's something that gets thrown around a lot, you know, within the personal and spiritual growth space. Is, you know, the importance of presence, and it can be so easily overlooked as a mental concept. And unfortunately, when we do that, we actually are not able to fully appreciate what presence is. And for me, it's been an ongoing discovery of the presence, like the gifts that our presence
Mm-hmm.
to each moment can bring us. Because every moment is different. And so there's a different experience for us to have and indulge in. And it's really dependent upon our ability to be perceptive to that moment. That will depend on what gifts we get from it. So that's really, in a nutshell, been my focus over this last 2 to 3 years, is just cultivating that presence and opening up my perception to what is here now. And it's this, as I say, this ongoing discovery that just continues to provide so many riches.
Yeah, I think it's a great way of wording it. And that's something that I've been putting into practice as well. If I'm noticing that, you know, I'm way off my mind somewhere and I'm thinking about this, that, next thing, or like, I need to do this, I need to do that. And I'll catch myself now and I'll go, what's around you? Like, what are you seeing? Or what are you hearing? Or are you feeling? What are you smelling? Like, these are all the things, like you say, that allow you to recognize what is really there, what is real in that moment.
Yeah, you highlighted that so well. It's like if we can ask these very simple questions, that acts as a gateway into the present moment. And some of those questions you asked were, what am I tasting right now? What am I hearing? What am I feeling? What sensations are there externally, but also internally? What am I seeing? That's a really big one for us as human beings. Is the fact that we have such a qualitative sight available to us. So at any moment, if we just ask ourselves some of these questions, we can find ourselves being brought more clearly into that moment. And then what happens is that we start to develop a sixth sense. And the sixth sense is this kind of clear aspect of our senses, which is like the clairvoyance, the clairsentience, the claircognizance, the clairs, is what I would say are the six senses. And that's when, we can, for example, we can see something in our mind's eye, not seeing it physically, but seeing it internally. We can hear something, not because it's a noise that's being created outside of us, but because it's internal. We just hear the words to a song or something. And then, we can also have clear cognizance, which is this inner knowing. We just know something, and that's kind of our intuition as well. I would say there's an overlap there. And then the beauty of that is that when we can develop these senses in a great way, we then use them to guide us through life. And so rather than using the mind, which is what I would say the majority of people have been accustomed to doing, because that's just part of this human condition that we're all living, we are able to evolve ourselves through practice, through a daily practice of being in the moment and opening up our senses to what is here, so that we then evolve ourselves to developing this internal guidance system. And then we can trust that to take us through life far better than anything we could possibly conjure up in our minds as a kind of life plan or a step-by-step daily, weekly, monthly plan for ourselves.
Yeah, I think that comes back to the idea of people that overthink a lot. They spend everything up here, but it's like, are you go back to what we were saying earlier with that your sight, your smell, your taste, your feel, are you taking them into account, or are you just thinking and using your mind to try and work out what's the best thing for you? And like you say, once you get past that and you begin to realise all these things, the way you put it to me, and it stuck with me and it still does, is meditation with your eyes open. And I think that's a really good way of putting it. And then afterwards I asked you the question, well, is meditation, has it got a purpose? And you say absolutely. And it's like going to the gym. It's like every day you're going to work your muscles, every day you're going to use them, you're going to move. When you go to the gym, you're accelerating the process, and that's what meditation is. But you should be doing it every day, and it's the same sense. So what meditation for me, with my eyes open now, is when I'm being aware and I go, all right, what do I see, what do I smell, what do I taste? And that statement for me was really powerful, and it's helped me a lot over the last month or two, and it has been really, really beneficial. And it's brought me to where I am now, and it gave me not only the courage but the confidence to just go, what is it that I'm learning in this moment? Like, was it truly? I'm like, I want to do a podcast. Like, I've been wanting to do one for a year. I said, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this with this, and just putting things into action now, because I'm not from this space of the overthinking and the space of the concern, the concern that the mind creates, because the fear is a creation of the mind.
Yes.
Without a doubt. And when you take away that and you start living from the presence, there is only a sense of love, joy, all these other emotions that we experience in such a profound way. And when you tap into that more, you start to follow, really, like you said, this kind of higher state of following your path, so to say.
Yeah, and I would even say falling into your path.
Yeah.
As well.
That's a much better way of wording that. I absolutely agree.
Because it requires that trust to take that leap of faith quite often into the next moment without feeling the fearful need to plan for it to be a really good moment, or to plan to avoid failure or something bad happening. So I would say that, you know, by being fully present, we have to be willing to fall flat on our face as well, and allow all the fears that come with that to be there.
Yeah, because they still exist. We still feel them. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're here to feel all the emotions in the spectrum, and all the sensations and feelings that come with those. So, for me, it's not about judging fear as a bad thing. It's really about welcoming it and inviting it when it's saying, hello, I'm here.
Yeah.
And then fully seeing it and feeling it for what it is. And then developing an okayness with that. Because the more okay we are with fear, or some of the other, let's say, unpleasant emotions like guilt, shame, anger, the more okay we are with it, the more it can be present with us, and the less need we will feel to move away from that and to change that. And what I've discovered is that most people, including myself, when I felt an unpleasant emotion, or when I feel one, my natural instinct is to move away from it. And usually what I would do is I would use my mind to help me with that. So it then becomes the tool that I draw upon to say, right, what's the best way to move away from this feeling right now? Oh, well, Matt, you could take this action. Why not go to the fridge and grab a beer?
Yeah.
Why not eat a piece of chocolate cake? Why not put some pornography on?
Yeah.
And distract yourself? Or why not put the TV on? Pick up your phone.
Yeah.
There's so many actions. And it's one of the reasons why one of the best spiritual practices is just being still for long periods of time. Because what that allows for is, in that state of meditation, where we are the observer of our internal and external experience, we are better able to see when those emotions arise within us. And then we can develop a resilience to them, so that we can be more okay with them and not feel the need to act as a result of them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the time though, I've had conversations with a lot of people about very similar stuff, and it's a lack of patience is something that trips a lot of people up. You know, they think it's going to happen overnight. They think it's going to happen within a week, or they meditate for a couple of days and they go, all right, nice, well, I'm good. It's like, no, you gotta be patient and allow it to be. There's no rush. I think patience is such a, it's a trait that you can definitely work on, the same as anything. And I know for me personally, in my experience, there's been points in my life, especially as a younger child, very impatient, very like, I want this. And then after being in hospital and spending 9 months in the same place all the time, I built this real sense of patience and this real sense of, because through that I'm going, well, I'm going to get better. I knew that going in, I knew that from day one. But I knew that I had to be patient in the process of me getting better, because it wasn't going to just happen overnight. And it was a real gift in that sense. I learned a lot from that experiences of me being in hospital and me having leukemia was a real gift. And people say, oh, it must be horrible, it must be the worst thing that happened to you. In a sense, yeah, like it wasn't nice for my body hated it, because all that's happening is they're just killing cells. But for an understanding of who I am, an understanding of growth, and in the long term, looking back at it and going, there's so much that I took from that I don't realise. And even now, as I sit back and look at it, this right here is something that I'm realising that I've taken from it. And this complete understanding of, things will come as they come. And you must be patient, and they cannot be rushed. And that also comes back to faith, and faith in the universe, or the divine, or God, whatever you want to call it, that it will bring you what you were supposed to have, but you must be patient for it to come to you, because it will not come overnight. And sometimes it does. Sometimes you go, I would like, or I'm grateful for X, Y, Z, and next morning you look outside and X, Y, Z is on your doorstep, and it blows your mind. But more often than not, the case is that you have to be patient and allow these things to come into fruition, because it allowed them to manifest, I think is the correct term. And again, going back to saying I see a lot of myself in you, I see a lot of patience in you. And I think that goes hand in hand with, the same ways and values of which I look at things as well. How did you develop patience? Because I don't think everyone's born with patience. I think there's people that are, and there's people that are just always have a very patient soul. But I think, at least for me, I know that it was a learning process. How do you feel like? Do you feel like you've always had it, or do you feel like it's something that you've grown to learn? And if so, how?
I would say both. I would say I've always been considered to be quite a patient person. If there is such a thing, I try to avoid identifying with such labels, but I would say that if I've ever compared myself to other people in the past, I would say, I've probably got a fair degree of patience, and often more than a lot of other people, and that was without consciously working on that. And it's been through diving more into these daily practices that you could consider to be mindful or spiritual that has allowed me to definitely cultivate more patience. And it might sound a bit strange, but one of them for me that I think probably brought me not just patience but more peace within my whole system was actually just sitting for, I think it was about 3 or 4 days. I just took some time out. I actually had a schedule planned for things that I was doing that week, some of which included paid work and everything else. And it was my spiritual teacher that said, Matt, you just need to stop everything. And after this call, light a candle and just be with that. And be with all the thoughts and emotions and feelings that come up. And whenever you feel the need to move from that place, stay there. Consciously bring yourself back to being there and not taking any form of action. And so I spent like 3 or 4 days doing this. And at night I would go to my bed. I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and I said to her, just to let her know, like, I don't know how long I'm going to be doing this. Maybe it could be 3 or 4 days, but this is what I really feel like I need to do for myself right now. And coming out the other side of it, I realized the significance of it, because my whole system was so much quieter. There was less noise, there was less mental activity, there were less emotions. And so I now invite any opportunity to kind of just be with myself. And I find now that because I do that a lot, and take opportunities to go on retreats,
Yeah.
and I also live with myself, like live alone a lot of the time. And I take the opportunity to create that space, to just sit with what is here in this moment, and to allow my probably needs or desires or fears to be there as well, but without taking action from them.
Yeah, just an acknowledgement of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just oh, that's interesting, a curiosity for what that is.
Mhm.
And because what I've discovered is that for me it's a journey to getting to a place where I'm completely peaceful with any set of conditions that take place in my life. And those conditions can be external and they can be internal. And so if I can just be at peace with everything, then I feel like the quality of my life is going to be at its highest.
Yeah.
Because then anything can happen.
It doesn't. Yeah.
And it doesn't bother me. Like we use this word all the time, like, God, I was really bothered by that, or this person really bothered me. And sometimes we overlook what we're actually saying, but what we're really saying is, this situation moved me
Mhm.
to a point where I was not okay with that. And so what we tend to do is we go through life trying to manage the external in order for the internal not to be disturbed or bothered. But that requires a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And it requires a lot of planning and controlling and manipulation of our life and of other people's lives and situations. So there's a real freedom to be attained and to be had through being able to be okay with whatever happens in life. And look, I'm not there yet. I'll be the first to admit that. But
I don't think there is I don't think there ever is a place in which you can get there. There is no there.
yes,
The way I look at it, anyway.
I would also agree. I mean, we're having an infinite experience as far as I see it. So there's simply a deepening
Yeah.
of that. But I would say that the practices that I've been fortunate enough to discover and practice have led me to a much greater deepening of that. So I can see that there's progress being made through making some conscious choices to move in this direction. And so yeah, I agree with you. There is no there. It's just somewhere over there.
Yeah.
Maybe is kind of, it's more of a direction as opposed to a set destination.
Yeah, and it's for me, it's the way I look at it is the experience. Like go back to the very first topic of conversation, presence. It's the experience, and that's what we're there for, the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the continued growth and the continued learning and the greater understanding of ourselves and of the world around us. Because you can understand someone else to an extent, but you'll never know. Because it's not you, it's not your experience. But the one thing that you have, you're able to get to not complete understanding, but you're able to grow a deep understanding of every single day is yourself. And I think so few people, like you say, don't acknowledge that, and they try and control the external, not to bother the internal. Whereas the spiritual journey, so to say, is the reverse. It's the going within. So you are, like you just said, you are not bothered by the external. The external does not have an effect on you. But you view the external and you go, oh, that's interesting. That's funny, that person says they're going to do this, this and this, and look at where they're at now. But also having a real appreciation and a gratitude for the external is so important, because the external allow you to learn. You learn from within, but you only learn from within when you acknowledge what you are seeing, what you're experiencing, what you're feeling. And a gratitude for that is very important. And gratitude for your own accomplishments and your own inner work as well. I think people don't give themselves enough appreciation for what they've came through, and what they've been through, and what they've achieved and taken from those situations. And if you've not taken from them yet, then sit with yourself and go, what is it? Just ask the question, I think. And not enough people ask the simple questions. We try and overcomplicate everything in such a way because we feel like there has to be complex structure to it. And I think a lot of that's due to what we're taught at school and with science, and we believe that everything has this complex structure. But even if you look at science, if you go back to the very, very simplest of what science tells you, everything is energy. It's that simple. There is no more or less to it. Energy cannot be destroyed or created. It just is. And it is a really beautiful way to look at it, but not enough people give themselves appreciation. And I notice that you're a person who does, because of the experiences you've been through, and I'm definitely someone who does as well. Like you say, there's always more. You can always give yourself more appreciation, be more grateful, have more empathy, more, like, there's always room for growth, because like you say, it's an infinite experience and an infinite universe that continues to expand and will continue to expand until the absolute end of time, if that's even possible.
Yeah, it is. And I think a lot of this experience that we're having is very confusing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it comes from the social conditioning, which programs us to believe that our life should be a certain way, and that happiness is something that is attained through a series of other attainments. For example, if I have a really good job and I make a certain amount of money every year, and I have a good like a beautiful partner, and we live in this certain place, and we have this type of car, and it's all condition based.
Yeah.
It's conditional happiness, but it's also flawed, because what we have found, that if we have lived our life in that way, that the happiness is very short-lived whenever we maybe do fulfill one of those attainments and achieve that. So if we just reflect on that strategy, we can see that it doesn't necessarily work, and if it does work, it works for a very short period of time. So what we've got to be looking then for, as far as I see it, is like, okay, if conditional happiness doesn't work, then what would unconditional happiness look like? And that's when we can be happy in this moment, not because of something. And there's so much in that's a lifetime endless discovery, that there's a continuous deepening of, and it's a beautiful discovery, because it includes all these things that you just mentioned, like gratitude and appreciation and presence and perception to what is here now, and discovering a deeper knowing within oneself, which I think can be actually differentiated very clearly between a knowing which is more of an intellectual knowing. For example, I pick up a book and I read a few things, and it's let's say it's a science book and it's telling me information. I can then say, oh, I know that now. I know that there's so many countries in the world, or there's so many oceans, or whatever else. Like, that is knowledge from a book, and so it's more of an intellectual knowing. But there's an internal knowing that doesn't come from words or from reading or the attainment of information, it's something that can only be experienced.
Yeah.
So it's also difficult to teach because it's something that you can't give another person through communication.
Yeah.
You can only guide them or point to it. And this self-knowing, ultimately, at the highest level, leads to self-realization, or also known as enlightenment, which is where one is completely aware of what one actually is at the highest level of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much to this, and then even within that, within enlightenment, there is an infinite series of possibilities there as well, and an infinite depth to that, it seems. Now, I can't say for sure because I don't know. I haven't experienced that yet, but that's something that I'm certainly enjoying the unfolding of, because it seems to be where life is guiding me at this time.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's like allowing yourself to be guided without any attachment to a particular outcome having to take place. Because if we're attached to having something take place, again, it becomes that conditional interaction with life, where we're then now dictating to life how it should be, rather than accepting life as it is and being fully appreciative for that and grateful for that.
Yeah, I think that's very, very well worded. I think it comes back to, if we go back to, the idea of presence, for me, because of the healing and, people talk about channeling, and these are a lot of things that, people are, it's now become a very common thing. People hear healing or channeling or manifestation, and they hear all these words, and most people, or at least with manifestation, is something they're very attached to. People go, oh yeah, I'm going to manifest this, which if only that's how it was that easy. But it is. But you have to do the work first, and you have to get yourself to a place where, like you've just said there, you're not attached to the outcome of it. So you don't go and go, all right, I'm going to manifest something and it's going to come to me like this, and people expect it to come a certain way, and you put limitations on what is possible. You put limitations on how it might come to you, or how it might go. Also, it also comes back to the, do you really believe that it's going to come to you? Do you believe that you're worthy of these things? And a lot of time people don't, because they've not sat, but due to events that happen to them and experiences that they've had, whether it be parents or whether it be at school, and they were told that they were never good enough or they wouldn't get this or that. And people don't realise that has such an impact on the soul, and has such an impact on the self, that unless you take the time to go within, whether it be through meditation, and be patient throughout these processes, and bring yourself to a state of peace, at the same time, you're never going to deal with them fully. They might come in time, and the universe, I believe, my thesis is with a lot of things, is that the universe will tell you, and it will tell you, and it will tell you. And if you continue not to listen, one day it's going to go, I'm sick fed up with this, and it just shows you. And it gives you no choice but to look at that situation for what it is, and but to look at your emotions and emotions that you're holding on to from past events for what they are. Not for what you think they are, not for what you feel like you've experienced, or what you want to feel like you've experienced, but for what really happened. And once you do that, once you come through that, you spend the time, and that's when you get towards the stage of, like you're talking about there, this idea of enlightenment, this idea of bringing yourself to a place where you're guided and you allow life to flow. I think that's a real good summary of everything we spoke about there in the last half an hour or so. Is, I think, the best way we can put it is the 3 Ps. I think that's probably a great way of putting it. Peace, presence, patience. Or, presence, peace, patience. Whatever order, it makes no difference. It comes to everyone.
That's it, yeah, they're all relevant here in their own unique way. And I think what's worth mentioning is with any practice, we have to be careful that we're not doing it in order to get something.
Yeah.
Because then that is still coming from the mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, the information that is for us will be delivered to us. And so the people that are receiving this information now through this podcast now get the opportunity to allow that to sink in and to feel the truth in the words as to how it relates to them. And then they can allow that to be with them and to move them in a direction. But as I say, it's important that we don't get ahead of ourselves. And this is another saying that we use a lot in our society, is let's not get ahead of ourselves. And this is something that the mind does a lot. And this is what brings us out of this moment. So we've spoken about living without attachment, which includes attachment to having a specific outcome take place.
Yeah.
We're also talking about not focusing on anything in the future, but being here now and just feeling into what is fully here, which we can't do if we are in the mind projecting our imagination into the future. And you touched on manifestation, and again, it's like there's such an arrogance to even saying, I'm going to manifest this, because it suggests that we're the ones in control and we're the ones that are deciding how our life is going to be. But I would flip that on its head, and instead of focusing on it being something that we think we need to do in order to get something that we want, that we actually surrender to life, and we accept that if life wants this for us in this lifetime, then it will be manifested. And the only thing that I can do, and I say it like, you know, I'm not really using that word properly, because it's not a doing, it's an act of being, is to allow the manifestation process to take place. So I'm not this infinite creator and I'm creating all this stuff. I'm simply here as the observer. And any time resistance comes up within me, whether that's a limiting belief or an emotion or something that is trying to put me into the future or the past or into my desires or my fears, then what the only thing that I can possibly do is to be. And if I'm being, then I'm in the least resistance to life at that point. And if I'm in the least resistance to life, then whatever is for me will be manifested. And I don't get to decide mentally what that is going to be. I'm just here to enjoy the ride.
Absolutely well said. I think, just to say what you just said was for me, and it will manifest in itself. Like for me, I want to have a nice car, but not for the sake of having a nice car. It's the experience of driving I love. I love the experience of driving. That's what I love. Like I love the feeling of turning the wheel and knowing that I'm in control of this car, and knowing where the four wheels are, accelerating every corner and braking just the right time and shifting it. That the experience and the feeling of driving is what I love. And the universe is very aware of that and knows that. So I go, all right, what car is going to give me the best experience of driving? Bring it to me. And if that is what is for me, which I know it is because that's something I love, and I know it's something I love, the universe will provide that for me. Now what car it is, I don't know. If it's even a car, I don't know. It could be something that allows me to have the same feeling and the same experience and the same love for the thing. It might not even be driving, but it will bring me the experience of something that I love to do, because I know that what I want to bring into fruition comes from a place of love and experience, and I want to experience new and things that excite me. Now, are these experiences always going to be positive? No. I think that also comes back to taking away expectation. Now, me sitting there saying that this is going to come to me, there's a bit of an expectation that I've just put there. And that's me still learning. I've realised that as I've said it. But it's the experience of things that I cherish. The experience of travelling. I don't care about going and staying in a fancy hotel. It's the experience of seeing new things. Experience of meeting new people. Experience of having new perspectives through different ways of life. These are the things that my soul and I value, because experience I think everyone values, but people think experience is having the brand new Mercedes with the lovely screens and stuff. Now, there's nothing wrong with having these things, but if you're wanting that purely for the sake of, I want this to show off to other people, then I feel like it's the wrong reasons. The experience of the ego comes into play there.
But I would agree with you, but even having reasons is still, what you're saying is, I want my life to be like this.
Yeah.
And you're just saying it in a nicer way.
Yeah, rather than a negative outlook.
Yeah, well, you're still trying to practice preference for how your life is, and you've said it really nicely. You know, I love to drive a car in this particular way, but if I said to you, well, I'm going to give you a Renault Clio and you're going to have to sit in 4 hours of traffic, are you going to love that?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you say, no, I don't want that experience, I want this experience.
Yeah.
So again, what happens is that then this creates resistance to any experience that isn't in your list of preferences. So we have to be aware of how the mind does that so well. It's very, very tricky because it's been doing it our whole lives. And there is a real process of surrendering that has to take place, and a challenging of every thought that arises. Well, not every single thought, but certainly, you know, an observation of the thoughts that are there, so that we can drop into this flow that life is already got here now. Because if we say, well, life is giving me a really difficult situation right now and I don't like it, then we're trying to change it in some way, and it's in the changing of it that we move further away from truth, because truth is saying, this is what you're getting, and we say, no, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that, no, take it back. Then all we've done is we've just rejected the gift of the present. The present, that's why it's called that, because it is a gift. But so it's not about saying it's only a gift if it matches my list of things that I like and enjoy. It's always a gift, but it's up to us to be able to see it that way. We have to get to a place where we see every experience of life as a gift.
Yeah.
And that's the ultimate freedom, because then anything can take place and we're going to be okay with it.
I think that is exactly where we'll end this, because that is very well said. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It's been a pleasure as well. It has been. And I'm sure we'll do this again in the future at some point.
I'm sure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ethan. Cheers.
The intention that is being set for anyone and everyone who watches this video is to have a better understanding of presence, patience, and peace. Thank you.